Hello guys and welcome back. Earlier this week I made a full breakdown on Gavin McKenna's game, and you know what? He got me so excited for the 2026 draft that I wanted to put my rankings out early. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to be releasing my top 15 early rankings for the 2026 NHL Draft, a draft class that is looking extremely deep in every single position. And honestly, it's looking like one of the most deep draft classes we've seen this decade. So who do I see as the best prospects in this class, and who rises to the very top? Make sure you watch till the end as we go through every single prospect and their games and their NHL potentials, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey prospect content just like this all throughout the year. When we look at this 2026 draft, honestly, it's looking really fantastic. Usually when I do my early rankings, I only list 10 players, but this time around, not only is it 15, but I had 4 honorable mentions that I just couldn't not mention today. Starting us out in the honorable mentions section, I wanted to first go with Mathis, who was a former first overall pick of the Quebec Ramparts, somebody that is already pretty physically refined, and especially with that goal scoring, I think will be a major component for him. I'm not sure how much pure offense there's going to be this year, 25 points in 41 games with Quebec, but that's a player that I think will be developing quite a bit over the next year, as he's on the younger side as a March birth date. But I love the physical tools. His acceleration is quite good for his size, so some good potential there. Another one on the younger side that gets an honorable mention is Carson Carrolls of the Prince George Cougars. He's somebody that has decent size at 16 years old, but a June birth date, and somebody that already has been progressing pretty well in the WHL. This last year, 34 points in 58 games as a defenseman. To me, the big thing with Carrolls is just the accuracy in a lot of different categories. He's somebody that just has good transition ability, good speed, and it's always a quick thinker. I think the big thing though is some of the times he can get lost in the defensive zone, sometimes where he looks quite a bit raw physically still, but he's one of the younger players of the draft, still 16 years old, so he still gets a pass for me. If you're looking for a pure pace pusher, Adam Valentini is your guy, just outside my top 15 still, but I adore him. I mean, the size is really maybe the biggest thing knocking against him since he's likely to be a center in the future, but in the USHL, he's been great this year. 15 goals, 34 points in 49 games. Just so much speed, so much creativity with the puck. He's a lot of fun to watch and will be great with Michigan, I'm sure. Now, just outside the top 15, and this really does show the depth of this draft class, I have Xavier Villeneuve, who is just such an absolute dog out there in the QMJHL. A couple factors: he is really small, especially in the strength department, 150 pounds, and that's something you can get away with a little bit in the QMJHL, and he is one of the older prospects in this class, which is a little bit concerning, I would say, but you can't deny what he's been able to do in the QMJHL this year. 59 games, 12 goals, 62 points. He's just been a pure dog offensively. So silky with the puck, so crafty. He just can deke out anybody in any position, especially along the offensive blue line. He can just be so dangerous there, especially as a power play quarterback. I could see Villeneuve being an absolute rock star, but a lot, I think, has to go his way for him to be able to match up against the pros, but still a long runway as a younger prospect. Now, starting us out inside the top 15, we're going to go on to one of my favorites in this draft class, in JP Hurlburt, Allen, Texas native, and probably one of the best Texas prospects we've ever seen. He's somebody that is just an absolute one-on-one dynamo. I mean, you can see what he's been able to do in the U17 level this year, 33 points in 50 games, and he's been something that has been pretty hyped for a long time now as a commit to the University of Michigan. But he's something that I like quite a bit because of the one-on-one ability and just how lethal he can be in the offensive zone, especially with the goal scoring. That to me is the biggest part of his game, the way he's able to find open lanes, and especially how he's able to beat players one-on-one in transition. There's a lot to like with Hurlburt. I think the big thing though will be the skating. It's solid. I think he's pretty slippery, I would say, especially against one-on-one situations, but he's not somebody that is a blistering skater, and for his size not being overwhelming, that might be something that holds him back a little bit, but I think the goal scoring instincts and just how good his shot is as well, there's a lot to like there. Next up at number 14, we're going to go on to one of the best names of this draft class. The WHL always has us covered. Let's go on to Daxon Rudolph, who I'm a pretty big fan of, and his consistency in the WHL level. You can see in his rookie year in 62 games, 7 goals, 38 points. I think he's been very effective for Prince Albert already, but it's somebody that is just smart all over the ice. Never really makes many mistakes, and considering him being a draft eligible player next year, that's pretty impressive to see. I think the big thing for me will be using his aggressiveness more, because I think when he is rushing up the ice, he has potential there with his skating and the ability to create. I just want to see that more. I want to see more consistency out of him offensively, but what he is right now is already a very capable defender with a lot of leeway to go and a lot of room to grow. Now, moving on to number 13, we're going to go on to another NTDP player, which seemingly a pretty good NTDP class coming up. Hopefully, we'll see if that ends up staying the case, but Mikey Burchild is a big part of it. Denver commit and somebody that has been one of the more prolific scorers for this NTDP team over the past couple years, whether that be at the U17 U17 or U18 level, and getting that substantial call-up does show the potential that he has within that system. I like Birchchild a lot. I think he's a little bit more of a refined, physical JP Hurlburt. They're pretty similar in their goal-scoring habits and what they want to do on the ice, but Birchchild, I think, is a little more refined, a little more mature, and has, I think, higher upside in his creativity, but he's somebody that with the size as well is a main factor, because I think the skating is a bit of an advantage in Hurlburt's case, where a player like Birchchild, who's 5'9", I think is a pretty average skater. He's all right, he gets by at the NCDP level, but I think considering his size and his average speed, I think that's something that puts him outside the top 10 almost automatically, even if the skill set is pretty solid there. Now, number 12, we're gonna go on to, at least as of right now, the most high-profile Czech prospect in this class. Let's go on to Adam Novotny, who I'm a pretty big fan of. He's been playing outside of his draft year, mainly in the top league in Czechia, which is pretty impressive. Also getting, of course, a roster spot on the U20 World Junior team, which is also impressive as well. I think in Novotny's case, he's just this really high-skilled player who, especially in the power play, is gonna do a lot of damage in the future. I do think I want to see a little more physicality out of him because his frame is terrific, almost 200 pounds out 6'1", but I think he's a player that, especially if you have somebody as a center doing the dirty work, especially in the boards, is able to get the puck and just rifle it whenever, use that creativity in a lot of great ways, and especially around the net can be very crafty, though I think especially on the power play, that's where I think the value will be there the most. Now, at number 11, we're going to go on to another player that I like quite a bit in this draft class, and Wisconsin commit. Let's go on to Lukas Zajic, who is one of the most interesting players of this draft class to me because there's some serious highs and some serious lows. 5'10", right wing, and somebody that in the NCP this year has been one of the best scorers, especially in the goal scoring department. Somebody that is just so electric around the net, and especially in the rush can do so many different things. To me, when it comes to Zajic, there's so many moments where he looks like this dynamic player, looks like the best guy on the ice, shifts where he is undeniable in his offense. But then there are times where I feel like he can get a little bit lost in the play, and sometimes where you just don't know where his head is at. I think the hockey sense is maybe the biggest thing that is a problem for me, especially when you consider the size. That's something that I don't know how many opportunities he's going to get at that true top level, but the skill set is so amazing, so creative, so interesting that as of right now, I'm willing to take the bet on it. Now, starting up the top 10 for us today, we go into a player that is maybe the exact opposite of a player like Lukas Zajic, and Olivers Mrnieks, who you might recognize because he was a 16-year-old this last year playing for Latvia at the U20 World Juniors. And not only was he there as a roster player, which is already impressive for a 16-year-old, he was good. He was definitively one of Latvia's best players already. And you can see in the USHL as a 16-year-old, he already has 31 points in 45 games. The offense has been showing well, but to me, the biggest thing about Mrnieks is the maturity, the way he plays the game. He is already at 16 years old and a young prospect as well for this class, being a July 2008 birth date. One of the smartest players of the draft. Always knows where to be, always knows where to create and get the most and maximize with his teammates. He's just somebody that is all over the ice in the right positions at the right times, using his physicality and doing everything possible to create offense. And defensively is a consistent player, a persistent player as well. I just love this guy for the opportunity he creates from his defense and the smarts that he has. And I think that two-way game is really going to propel him to the NHL. And in terms of especially the top 15 is probably one of the most projectable players already. Which again, the fact that I can say that for a July birth date is extremely impressive. Now going on to one of the most fun players to watch in this draft class, I would say, let's go on to the QMJHL and go on to Swiss stud Lars Steiner, who for Ruan Noranda has been an absolute beast this year. 5'11", 181 points, or 81, not 181 points, that would be much different, his stock right now. But in the QMJHL this year, in 55 games, he has 23 goals, 60 points. I absolutely love this guy though. He is somebody that is just so much fun, so creative, so dynamic with the puck. His speed and the way he uses it around the ice is just so impressive, already knowing where to be at all times, and especially in transition, just being an absolute dog out there, creating offense, getting into the zone, making things simple. He's not somebody that overcomplicates things, and especially with how skilled he is with the offensive game, that I think is a pretty important attribute. I think in Steiner's case, the sky is the limit, and especially with how good he's already been in the QMJHL, I think he could have some massive numbers next year. Now at number 8, we're going to go on to one of the most talked about players of this draft class, and Ethan Belchitz, who is a fascinating prospect. 16 years old, but you can see the pure beef. 227 pounds, 6'5", unbelievable. And he plays like it out on the ice. You can see 56 games this year for Windsor, 17 goals, 21 assists for 38 points. Still an incredibly raw player, which you would guess with the size and the age there. I do think there's some issues with the lateral movement and sometimes where the speed just isn't quite there, especially in transition. But the fact is, once the offensive game is established, there's fewer players that are more scary than Belchitz out there. With the physical tools, his know-how around the net, how he's able to just bang in pucks at any moment. He's just somebody that can outdog you at any time. And I think in Belchitz's case, he's somebody that is growing that offensive game, growing that confidence as well, and that'll be pretty big for him. I think the big thing, though, will be improving that speed and getting it to a bigger level, because that could really separate him from a solid player like a Will Cooley, for example, to a franchise type of piece. He has a lot of potential, but seizing that will be the big question. Now, at number 7, we're going to go on to one of the best pace pushers, I would say, on the list, and maybe one of the best goal scorers as well. Coming from the WHL in Mathis Preston, who is one of the most interesting and especially creative players of this draft class. If you're looking for pure offense, Preston is just unbelievable. You can see in 52 WHL games this year, he has 22 goals, 22 assists for 44 points with the Chiefs. He is just so much fun to watch out there. In transition, he is just undeniable. His speed is just insane to watch. His creativity, the goal scoring, especially when it comes to one-on-one situations in transition. He can beat you in so many different ways, and that goal scoring is good enough to really make him a threat in every single position. I do want to see a little bit more pace with his playmaking, especially once the offensive game is established. But I think in Preston's case, the individual skill set is maybe even top 3 in this class. Now, at number 6, we're going to go on to a defenseman that I don't think is getting as much hype as he should in this class, and that is Ryan Lynn of the Vancouver Giants, who is looking really fascinating right now, especially if he were to grow a couple more inches, which I'm really hoping for. I think he could be a top 5 pick potentially in this class. You can see so far Vancouver this year in his first season, he has in 59 games, 5 goals, 47 assists for 52 points, and a big reason for that is the maturity. I would argue he's maybe the most balanced, smartest defenseman of this draft class. Just somebody that always makes the right decisions, always is there at the right moments. His skating ability is solid, his compete level is there, and he's somebody that I think has a growing offensive game all throughout this year. Finding that confidence and finding that dynamic ability has been able to be achieved. And the more and more I watch him, the more and more I like him. And in Lynn's case, I think he's somebody that would just be an excellent all-around D that could play in really any position you ask him to play. Now let's go on to the top 5, the cream of the crop for this draft class and the very best. Let's go on to the first Swede of the list, but not the last, in Viggo Bjorck, who's getting a lot of attention as he rightfully should, because he has just been on a different level in the U20 level in Sweden. You can see in 42 games, 27 goals, 47 assists for 74 points. I believe the most points in the junior 20 before his draft year of any player, and don't quote me on that, but he's been unbelievable at that level. And he's gotten a call up into the Allsvenskan, World Hockey Challenge as well, has done well pretty much every single place he's played, and a lot of it is because of the speed at which he plays the game. Whether that be with his skating or his decision making, he is just on a different level. It seems like he's thinking at a different level than any other player in that league. And in Bjork's case, I want to see him play more in the pros, because I think that is the big thing that will really make or break him. The physicality is a little bit of an issue. The size is, of course, a major thing that could hold him back. But the skill set there, the talent, the speed, it's all in a really neat package already. And I'm fascinated to see what he does next. Now, at number 4, we're going to go on to another Swede in this class, and a top one as well. Another player you should be keeping your eyes out on, in Ivar Stenberg, who has just been also at a different level, just like Viggo Bjorck. Somebody that's on the older side of this draft class as well, but 5'11", 170 pounds. He's somebody that has gotten the call up to the SHL this year and has played a bulk of his games there this year, which I think is a pretty big thing for him going forward. 3 points and 1 goal, which, again, not getting a ton of opportunity there in the SHL, but the fact that he's there and playing, I think, is pretty impressive, especially when you compare Ivar to his brother in Otto Stenberg, former first rounder of the Blues. I think in Ivar's case, he's a lot more of a thinker of the game. He's a lot more of a processor, somebody that is, I think, a little bit more of a step ahead, but the skill set is there as well, like it was with Otto. Somebody that as well with the goal scoring and dual threat he has, just has so much potential there. I am fascinated to see what he's able to accomplish next year in the SHL. Already getting this experience, I think could do him well. And now that we know he's not going to the NCAA, that he's fully committed with a contract to the SHL, hopefully he gets a lot more minutes as well next year too. Now at number 3, we're going to go on to another player that is a complete physical package, but a different case as well to even Belchitz, somebody that is putting it all together already. Let's go on to Ryan Roobroeck of the Niagara Ice Dogs, who has just been a beast this year in the OHL. Now, it is worth noting one of the older prospects of this draft class, but 6'4", 190 pounds, he is playing like he should be in this year's class. You can see in 63 games for Niagara, which not a good team, by the way. He is already their leading scorer with 40 goals, 43 assists in 83 games. Just truly dynamic type of play. And he's been able to really improve the pace, his skating, and really improve his transition ability, which I think has leveled him above some of the other bigger players like a Belchitz, for example. In Roobroeck's case, he just brings so much to the game, so much of a complete center ability, and it will be interesting to see how he improves on next year if we see a little more of a defensive ability and more consistency. But what we see out of him already, how much he's able to carry his team too, he's just so much fun, especially at that size. Now at number 2, we're going to go on to the player outside of Gavin McKenna that seems to be being talked about the most, and rightfully so, I would say. Let's move on to the Victoria Royals and franchise D, Keaton Verhoeff, who I would agree, brings the most competitiveness to Gavin McKenna's first overall spot. Not quite there yet, but certainly on the right track. You can see at 16 years old, 6'4", 212 pounds, an absolute beast of a man already. But you can see in 61 WHL games, 20 goals, 24 assists for 44 points. I think the big thing that really increases Verhoeff and his potential to me is just how good all around he is already. The biggest thing to me is the slap shot and just how unbelievable it is in any position. You can just rifle it and it is perfect already at 16 years old, which really leaves me a lot of hype going into the future as well. But his power play ability is supreme. The way he thinks the game is already there. His physical attributes and the way he uses it are already at a great level too. I want to see a little more intensity when it comes to his skating defensively, but the traits physically are already there, and the way he's able to close out gaps, make things harder on the opponents. He's already doing that so well at 16 years old. Plus the offensive ability and how much we've seen it grow, especially in transition this year. Verhoeff just brings so much to the game, and it reminds me a lot of a Alex Pietrangelo, for example, who is just able to do so many different things at once, play offense, play defense, and make it all look so easy. But now we go on to number 1, and the inevitable, the really uncontested number 1 pick and likely first overall pick in the 2026 draft, unless a Verhoeff or a Roobroeck or maybe even a Bjorck is able to come up in some ways. Gavin McKenna will likely be your first overall pick, and at this point, absolutely deserves the hype. You can see what he's been able to do, and we've been touching on this throughout the last week. In 54 games for Medicine Hat, 37 goals, 84 assists for 121 points. One of the best pre-draft years we have really ever seen. It's not on McDavid levels. It's not on Connor Bedard levels. He's closer to the Sidney Crosbys, the Mario Lemieux of the world in that department, which is a pretty great crop. Now, personally for me, I don't think Gavin McKenna has quite the potential of a McDavid or a Lemieux or a Crosby, but I think McKenna is so good at what he does with the slipperiness that he provides, how creative he is around the ice, and just how much he can just use his willpower to dominate you offensively. He thinks the game so well, is already thinking of the craziest way to beat you. His highlight reel goals are unbelievable. The plays that he's able to make all over the ice are there, but he seems to always be making it. Almost every single game, he's trying something new. He's trying something creative, and I love that about McKenna. He is, I think, immediately going to become one of the most creative players in the NHL, and even though I don't think he has true number 1 NHL player potential, I think he could get close and is definitely going to be one of the most impactful wingers almost immediately at the NHL level to me. But those are my early rankings for the 2026 NHL draft. If you haven't noticed already, it's looking really, really good. I mean, a player like Villeneuve at 16, I mean, he would probably easily be top 10, top 8 for me if it were to be in this year's draft. So that gives you an example, I think, of just how stacked this class is, and I cannot wait to keep track of it next year. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the breakdowns, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and the notification bell for more just like this on not just this draft, but the 2025 draft, 2027 draft, and beyond. And of course, make sure you share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online. Comment down below your thoughts on my top 15/19, what you agree, what you disagree with, and what would your top 5 look like as well. Let me know your thoughts down below. And click on this card for all of my hockey prospects talk right in one playlist. And I will see you guys in the next one. I hope you have a fantastic hockey day, and goodbye.